Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 14th July 2024. Today again, we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we'll look into various aspects of bypolls in India. Then we'll learn about an interesting topic, that is modern slavery. Then we'll look into various dimensions of direct tax collection, particularly in context of recent rise in direct collections in India. Then we'll learn about an important polity topic, that is Gram Nyayalaya. After that, we'll discuss some aspects of Central Information Commission. At the end, we will look into some prelims snippets which will help you in excelling your prelims exam. So stay tuned. Our first topic is bypolls in India. The context of this topic is that recently the results of 10 assembly elections has been announced on 13th July. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, constitutional bodies, transparency and accountability, and salient features of representation of People's Act. So what does we mean by bypolls? So bypolls are special kind of elections which are majorly conducted to fill the vacant seats, and these vacancies arise mainly due to death of representative or member, or resignation, or disqualification of member, or expulsion from the house. Here I will also want to give you some extra information that majorly the disqualification can happen. For example, if that member is convicted for any offense for at least 2 years, then he may be disqualified from the house. Then the major primary objective is to fill the vacant seat in a time-bound manner and enable the representation of people of that district or that constituency in due time. The Representation of People Act 1951 talks in detail about the by-elections. The section 151A says that by-elections shall be held within 6 months from the date of occurrence of vacancies. Now, there are some exceptions also. For example, section 151A subclause A says that 6-month rule will not apply when the remainder of the parliament term is less than 1 year. For example, general elections happened recently. So if let's suppose any vacancy that has arisen in the month of January 2024, so there will not be any by-election because the remainder time for that parliament is less than 1 year. So that's why the election will be conducted with the general elections rather than going for the bypolls. Then section 151 subclause B says that to not hold bypolls is a consultation between Election Commission and the central government certifying difficulty to hold the same within 6 months. Now, if the Election Commission with central government have certified that there is a difficulty either due to issues like security threat or due to occurrence of some disaster, etc., they find it difficult to conduct the bypolls, then that 6 months time or 6 months boundation will not be there. Let's also briefly look into types of elections. Some experts categorize into 3 types. One is the primary election, which is generally happened within the party. For example, let's suppose this is the constituency of Central Delhi. Now, from any political party, if 10 persons want to contest from this particular constituency, so party may go for some inner polls or inner elections to choose any one person who will be representing or who will be contesting elections from this constituency. So mainly primary elections are for inner party democracy or inner party elections. Then the general elections, which are mainly the nationwide elections. For example, recent Lok Sabha polls that happened, so that was a nationwide election, so that can be categorized or that can come under the general elections. Then there are special elections where there is no time bound frequency of the contest elections to happen, and for example the bypolls can be called as the category under the special elections. Then let's look into briefly various types of elections that happened in India. For example, at executive level, we have elections of president and vice president. Then at the central or union legislature level, we have elections of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Then at state legislature level, we have elections of legislative assemblies and legislative councils. Then at the local levels, we have elections of panchayats and municipalities. All these three elections are conducted by the Election Commission of India, are overseen by the Election Commission of India. And these local level elections, that is elections at panchayats or for municipalities, block level, district level, all these are overseen by the State Election Commission, which is provided under the Article 243K. Second, these state election commissions has been formed after this 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment 1992. Now, since we have talked about Election Commission, let's look into some basic detail about Election Commission also. The Election Commission of India is a multi-member body consisting of one Chief Election Commissioner and two other election commissioners. The appointment is done by the President of India, and if we talk about their tenure, the tenure is 6 years or 65 years, whichever is earlier. Now they are removed. If we talk about the removal from their office, the Chief Election Commissioner can be removed by the process of impeachment, whereas the election commissioners will only be removed after the recommendation of Chief Election Commissioner. Now there has been some interesting development regarding the appointment process of election commissioners. What happened? In past few years, there has been some recent development. For example, this famous judgment of Anup Barnwal versus Union of India. The Supreme Court says that the earlier process which were being used to appoint the election commissioners, when the central government were recommending the names and they were being appointed by the President of India, is against the impartial and independent functioning of election commissioners. So the Supreme Court said that we are recommending that there will be a committee, in that there will be Prime Minister of India, Chief Justice of India and Leader of Opposition. And this committee will be recommending the names of election commissioners, and then those will be appointed as election commissioners by the President. Government brought a new law, especially with regard to the appointment process of the election commissioners. Now, in that particular law, government provided a committee in which there will be Prime Minister, there will be a Union Cabinet Minister whose name will be recommended by the Prime Minister itself, and there will be a Leader of Opposition. And this committee will decide the name of election commissioners, and then they will be appointed by the President of India. If we talk about the functions of election commissions, they have a wide variety of functions. For example, they prepare the electoral rolls, means the number of people or the people who are eligible to cast their vote in any one particular election in their constituencies. Then to ensure that free and fair elections are conducted. Then they also look after the registration of political parties. Then to recognize the state and national parties, this function is also being looked after the Election Commission of India. Then they also decide on various aspects of disqualification of members. Their opinion is also sought in various Supreme Court case laws where they have to give their opinions. If we talk about impact of bypolls, especially with regard to the political parties, it is an indicator of popularity and strength, especially of the leaders on whose names the elections are being conducted. For example, every political party have a national leader on whose names majorly the elections are contested. So to look whether those national leaders are popular or not, that bypoll election act as a litmus test. Then it also helps in gauging the public sentiment, helps in measuring the public sentiment, and also gives an assessment of support base. It also gives an idea about the major government policies, whether it is the fiscal policy, whether it is the policies related to the vulnerable sections like farmers, tribals, etc. Then it also impacts the majority or strength in the house, and that plays a very important role, especially in passing of various bills, etc. Then it also helps in tweaking their strategy to how they can experiment with their electoral strategies in the future elections or the general elections or the upcoming elections. Then what is the effect of overall fiscal and government policy changes are having on the general population. Bypolls also tells us about that, tells us to the political parties about that also. That for example, if government have came with any particular scheme, what is the effect, what is the public sentiment, what is the opinion of people about that particular scheme? That idea majorly political parties get from the Bypolls. A previous year question that is asked from this topic was, consider the following statement. This was asked in 2017. The Election Commission of India is a 5-member body. This is incorrect. Union Minister of Home Affairs decide the election schedule for the conduct of both general election and by-election. No, this is also incorrect. This is decided by the Election Commission of India only. Then the election commissions resolve the dispute relating to the splits and mergers of recognized political parties. This statement is correct. So only D3 third statement was correct, and correct answer is D3 only. The Election Commission of India is not a 5-member body. We have one chief election commissioner and 2 election commissioners. Then Election Commission of India decide the schedules and everything, but all the matters related to the disputes regarding the splits and mergers are looked after, are decided by the Election Commission of India only. So answer here was 3 only, that is D. Now a mains practice question that you people can practice from this topic is that, discuss the constitutional provisions related to the bypolls in India. What are their general implications for the political parties? Our second topic is modern slavery. The context of this topic is that Italian police have freed 33 Indian farm workers from slave-like working condition in the Italy. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1 social issues and syllabus of your GS paper 2 welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of population. Now let's look into the background of this topic first. So Italian police said on July 13 that they had freed 13 Indian farm laborers from slave-like working conditions in the northern Verona province, which is a province of the Italy. The police have also seized almost 4.5 crore rupees from their 2 alleged abusers. Second was, there was a case of Satnam Singh, who was a fruit picker and he was employed by some people in the Italy. Due to malfunctions of machineries or no proper use of machineries, his hand was amputated. But he couldn't get proper medical facilities and ultimately his death happened. So there has been widespread protest in the Italy regarding the slave-like condition in which the migrant workers have to work. If we talk about slavery, it is a system under which people are treated as property to be bought and sold and are forced to work. Here, there are conditions that are very abysmal, that are very poor, there are basic necessities are also not present there. For example, air, ventilation, the basic sanitation facilities, potable water facilities are not available. This modern slavery includes the bonded labor, child labor, the forced marriages, child marriages, human trafficking, or the forced begging that happens. If we talk about a report by International Labour Organization or ILO, it says that 1 in 150 worldwide is facing some or other form of modern slavery. Then a report by Walk Free Foundation that came in 2016 says that 18.3 million people in India living in forms of modern slavery, which is about 39% of global slaves. Then there was a Global Slavery Index 2018 that says that there are 18 million people living in modern slavery on any given day in 2016 in India. Now there are the rank of India in this Global Slavery Index was 53 out of 167 countries in the index. And if we talk about the absolute number of modern slaves, then India is on the top. So what are the various reasons for this modern slavery? First, the economic reasons or the economic factors. The widespread poverty. For example, as per the World Bank, there are about 712 million people worldwide who are poor in year 2022. Then specifically if we talk about the India, more than 11.28% people are multidimensionally poor if we go for the head count ratio. That is by the report released by Niti Aayog, that is a multidimensional poverty report. So this widespread poverty leads to a condition where people do not have even basic facilities. They do not have employment opportunities. And obviously, then they look for whatever the available employment is, whether it have basic facilities or not, whether it have proper salary, social security benefits or not. They join that employment just to come out of that poverty. Then the global inequality, which is on the rise, which is also quoted by the Oxfam report, World Inequality Report, etc. This have also increased the divide between the rich and the poor, and that is also where increasing poverty is happening. And these people, especially the ultra rich people, are also looking to materialize or gain some extra capital, and they are employing these poor people with low wages, no social security benefits, etc. And that is also leading to lot of slavery or modern slavery like conditions. Then with regard to demand of cheap labor, what happens in the capitalism in the world is on the rise. Every business or corporate wants to increase their profit, and that is where there is increased demand of cheap labor. And as of India has sufficient number of cheap labor available, and that is where people go to these Western countries like US, Italy, etc., where earlier the whatever is being promised for that employment is not being fulfilled, because those people located in these Western countries have ample supply of cheap labor coming from India like countries. And that is where there is lot of supply of labor, and that leads to lower wages, and these people further perish in the poverty and the slavery like conditions. So the cheap availability of cheap labor is also one of the important reasons. Then the social factor, the discrimination, whether it is between black and white, or the racial, ethnic or gender related discrimination, all these also are one of the major causes. Then the lack of education, when the people and especially the laborers or the people who are seeking jobs do not have proper education, their bargaining capacity is very low. And even the lack of awareness about the basic rights are also some of the important reasons. Then the weak governance, whether it is the corruption or the lack of proper enforcement of anti-slavery measures, are also the reasons. Then if we talk about the political factors, the conflict and instability in the world, for example Russia-Ukraine war or the Israel-Hamas conflict, all these are also increasing the slavery like conditions, human trafficking, etc. are increasing. Then the human trafficking, which is majorly a complete organized crime, and people involved in this have a very high profit potential, and they don't want to let that go with. And that is where the slavery is increasing in the modern world. Then the debt bondage. For example, if we talk about the debt status of India's agricultural sector, lot of debt or loans that are being taken in the agricultural sector or by the farmers are still informal in nature. So that is the case where a high rate of interest is being asked from the farmers. And let's suppose if the post harvest losses happens, or due to the climate change related issues, incessant rainfalls, etc. happened, and farmer did not have a very good produce. So that due to the burden of that debt, that person or that farmer might have to go into the debt bondage, where he have to do some work for that informal lender without any pay. Then some other factors like the cultural factors, where in some of the societies or some of the groups there is a practice, some of the practices like child marriage, etc., which are also some of the forms of modern slavery. Then the globalization, which has led to interconnectedness of world. This have helped in ensuring that the availability of cheap labor is throughout the world, and that is also one of the major reasons, that's globalization, that modern slavery is coming in one or other forms in today's world. If we talk about global efforts to curb slavery, there is United Nations Convention Against the Transnational Organized Crime, and under this there is a Palermo Protocol, which talks about trafficking in person, establishing definition, criminalizing trafficking, and outlining victim protection measures. So this protocol under this United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime mainly looks after the human trafficking. Then there are some of the ILO conventions, for example, Forced Labor Convention that came in 1930, then Abolition of Forced Labor Convention that came in 1957, which abolished forced labor in all its forms. Then Protocol of 2014 to the Forced Labor Convention 1930 that have also comprehensively addressed the problem of forced labor throughout the world. Then if we talk about the efforts that are being done in India, some of the legislative frameworks, for example, Bonded Labor Abolition Act of 1976, which was amended in 1985 to include contract and migrant workers also. And there has been a central scheme for rehabilitation of bonded labor also. So this Bonded Labor Abolition Act and this Central Rehabilitation Scheme is comprehensively looking after the issue of modern slavery. Then the Contract Labor Act of 1970, Interstate Migrant Workmen Act and the Minimum Wages Act are some of the legislative frameworks which are addressing the issues of the employment, where they has been recommended that the employment should not be very discriminating towards the employees. Then there should be minimum wages, social security benefits, proper working conditions should be there. Then the Child and Adolescent Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, which also look after the child labor like conditions, child trafficking, etc. Then Juvenile Justice Act of 2010 have specifically prohibited the hazardous employment of children in the hazardous industries, etc. Then also it have looked after the debt bondage and other issues. The 4 labor codes that have also came, whether it is the code on social security, the wages, minimum working condition, etc., all has been comprehensively dealt with. That is also curbing, that is also looking after the issues related to the modern slavery. And then the Supreme Court says that the non-payment of minimum wages amounts to forced labor under Article 23 of the Constitution of India, which is a basic fundamental right provided to the citizens. So what needs to be done to comprehensively address the issue of modern slavery? First of all, there is need for strengthening legal frameworks worldwide and in India also. Here we don't need newer laws, rather than we need stricter enforcement of these laws. Then we also need economic development, especially to address the issues like poverty, lack of proper employment, disguised unemployment, etc. Then there is also need to provide awareness to the people, to the employees about their rights, to provide the basic awareness about the rights laborers have, especially with regard to minimum wages, social security benefit, with regard to proper working conditions, etc. Then there is also need to protect the vulnerable groups like tribals, farmers, and people who are in extreme poverty. Then there is also need for rehabilitation and reintegration of people who we are bringing out from the vicious cycle of slavery. There is need to ensure that proper employment, proper education, etc. is being provided to these people. Then there is also need for international cooperation among the countries, among the various intergovernmental institution. There is need to talk on this abysmal issue of modern slavery, where world should come on one page. We should ensure that availability of cheap labor should not lead into the discrimination, the exploitation of laborers. Then there is also need for multi-stakeholder engagement. Here we need to engage with NGOs or non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, various government at state level or provincial level, then local level governments, central governments. Everyone should be consulted properly, so that when all stakeholders will be consulted, they will be collaborating and cooperating, we will be able to address the issue comprehensively. Then there is also need to leverage the technology, use the technology, where the data sharing and analysis is happening, to ensure that whenever human trafficking like conditions are happening, human trafficking like issues, organized crime are happening, that can be observed and that can be addressed properly. A mains practice question from this topic is that discuss the primary factor contributing to the persistence of modern slavery and suggest comprehensive strategies to eradicate this global scourge. Our next topic is direct tax collection. The context of this topic is that net direct tax collections have seen a surge of nearly 20% during April 1 to July 11 period. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your UPSC prelims, economic and social development, and syllabus of your GS paper 3, mobilization of resources. So let's try to understand the background first. The personal income tax collections have continued to outpace the corporate tax collections. The cumulative net direct tax collection have grown nearly 20% to almost 5.74 lakh crore during April 1 to July 11 period of the ongoing financial year, that is 2024 to 2025. And here in this increased direct tax collections, one of the important component we have seen is the increase in the securities transaction tax collections, which have stood to almost 7,285 crore rupees. And one of the major reasons for this increase in the security transaction tax is that sharp increase in the stock market trading activities. There has been substantial number of demat or dematerialized accounts that has been opened, and the trading activities, stock trading activities, have seen upsurge in the past few months, and that have led to increased STT collections or security transaction tax collection, ultimately increased direct tax collections also. Now let's also talk about various components of direct and indirect tax. So basically the basic difference between direct and indirect tax is that in the direct tax, the person who is liable to pay tax is directly paying to the government or the authority that is imposing that tax, whereas this is not the case in the indirect tax. For example, in the income tax, for example, if I am liable to pay the income tax, I am directly paying it to the income tax department or to the government, which is not case in the case of indirect tax or the goods and services tax or GST, which is being levied by various service providers. For example, if you are eating food in any restaurant, so their GST is being levied. So there, whenever you are paying GST, you are not directly paying it to the government or the authority that is imposing that tax. If there are various components in the direct tax, for example, income tax that is levied on the income of person, then the capital gains tax, which is imposed on the capital gains that has happened. For example, if this is person A who have bought a house in year 2018, now after 5 years, if he is selling that house, he will raise some extra money, he will get some extra money. So that is the capital gains that has happened. So government may impose some tax on that also. Then the securities transaction tax, or the tax that is levied on the buying and selling of securities, especially those securities which are listed on the stock exchanges. Then the prerequisite tax, there are some prerequisites that are provided to the employees, for example, food bills, fuel bills, etc. So here also government may impose some taxes, and that is the prerequisite tax. Then there are corporate tax, which is levied on the various corporate business houses or the private companies on the income that they are generating. Then there were sell tax, service tax, and excise duty, value added taxes, octroi, etc., which are mainly that has been included in the goods and services tax or the GST. So if we look into the trends also, the gap between corporate tax and the personal income tax has been declining in the past few years. The major reason why corporate tax have recently seen a dip is because of widespread reforms that has happened, especially in the year 2019, where we have followed the global norms, global trends of minimizing the corporate taxes, and that has led to lower corporate tax generations. Then if we look into this direct tax collection, it is seeing a rise, and one of the main reasons for that is the increasing formalization of economy, etc. Then if we look into this chart, the almost the 53.78% are those people who have filed their income tax returns, and mainly they belong to income of 1 to 5 lakhs, whereas the person who have more than 50 lakhs of income are only 0.8%. okay, and they are major contributor to the income tax generations. And if we look into the effective personal income tax rate in India after reducing all the deduction exemptions that are provided, we have almost 42.7 effective rate, which is much lower than the China and the South Africa. If we talk about the direct tax, we have almost seen a 49% growth rate, whereas in the collection, if we talk about the collections of indirect tax, we have seen a lower growth rate there, only about 20%. If we talk about 2017, 18 to 21, 22 figures. Then if we talk about the total gross tax collection, it has seen almost 34% increase in that same duration. So what is the significance of rising direct tax collection? First of all, it is progressive, means the people who are earning more are paying more. So this is also emphasizing on the equity principle that says that high income person are earning more, so they should pay more tax, whereas the low income person who is earning low should pay more tax. So direct tax collection is also signifying on the progressive taxation and the equity principle. Then it is also helping in addressing inequality. For example, these persons who are ultra rich or very rich are earning more. Now the tax collection that is coming from them will be helpful to fund various government schemes, various measures that can be helpful in addressing the poverty, employment and educational and health related facilities. They can help in improving educational and health facilities. So here it will help in addressing inequality, because the money that is coming from these ultra rich people will help in these people who are in very poor conditions to come out of that poverty, that poor condition, because government is helping these people from the funds or the money that they have taken by taxing these rich people. Then it will also help in curbing inflation. If government want to curb inflation, they can just increase a little level of the direct taxes, and that can suck up the excess liquidity in the market and can address the inflation. Then there is also certainty in estimation, especially with regard to the direct taxes, because government have already some idea about the person who are liable to pay taxes, and that's why there is less mismatch between the estimated tax revenue and the actual collected revenue or the taxes. Then it also helps in curbing tax evasions, because government have a fair idea about the various deductions, exemptions that the person will get, and that they can be easily caught off if they are evading the taxes. Then there is also low administrative cost in the collections. What happens here? There is no intermediary between the person who is liable to pay tax and the authority that is imposing the taxes. So there is no administrative cost, or there is less requirement of further matching the various liabilities, etc. So this also helps in reducing the administrative cost and ultimately leads to increased tax collections to the authority or the governments. Our next topic is Central Information Commission. The context of this topic is that Supreme Court says that the Central Information Commission has power to constitute benches and frame regulation, while observing that autonomy of CIC is of paramount importance. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, right to information, statutory body, quasi-judicial body, transparency and accountability. So this Central Information Commission is constituted under the Right to Information Act 2005. And they have jurisdiction over all central public authorities located in India. If we talk about the objectives, then their formation was mainly to exercise the powers conferred on them through the RTI Act 2005. For example, under the section 18 of the RTI Act, they have been provided this power to receive and inquire into the complaints from any citizens, whether their right to information is not being exercised in a time-bound manner. Then under the section 19 of the same RTI Act 2005, they have this power to receive and decide upon the second appeal from any citizen. Then they will also be performing the duty of monitoring and reporting under the section 25 of RTI Act 2005, where they will be looking into the overall RTI or right to information infrastructure in whole India. Then if we talk about their composition, there is one chief information commissioner and not more than 10 information commissioners in a chief information commission body. Their appointment is done by the President of India on the recommendation of a committee consisting of Prime Minister as a chairperson and the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha and one union cabinet minister who is nominated by the Prime Minister. The tenure of CIC or ICs, as the case may be, shall hold for office for a period of 3 years from the date on which he enters upon his office. Then if we talk about the State Information Commission, they are constituted by the state government. It has one state chief information commissioner and not more than 10 state information commissioners. These state information commissioners are appointed by the governor on the recommendation of one appointment committee who is headed by the chief minister in the state. Our next topic is Gram Nyayalaya. The context of this topic is that Supreme Court seeks full report from the states and high courts on the establishment and functioning of Gram Nyayalayas in the state. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your UPSC Prelims, Indian Polity and Governance, and syllabus of your GS paper 2, Judiciary. So these Gram Nyayalayas were actually established under the Gram Nyayalayas Act 2008, and their main aim was to ensure speedy and easy access to the justice system in the rural areas. The composition of Gram Nyayalayas, they are presided over by a Nyaya Adhikari who will have the same power, enjoy the same salary and benefits as a judicial magistrate of first class. This judicial magistrate of first class has been defined under the section 29 of CRPC, which says that judicial magistrate of first class will be those magistrates who have that power of giving imprisonment or sentence not exceeding 3 years, or fine not exceeding 10,000 rupees, or both. So they can imprisonment or they can sentence a person for a maximum 3 years for any crime where the maximum sentence is 3 years and the fine is 10,000 or both. Then they are mainly appointed by the state government in consultation with the respective high courts in that state. Then they have jurisdiction over an area specified by a notification by the state government in consultation with the respective high court. The court can function as a mobile court at any place within the jurisdiction of such Gram Nyayalaya after giving wide publicity in that regard. Means whenever that court will function as a mobile court, they will have to do some publicity also that they are setting up this Gram Nyayalaya to ensure all the litigation that are there in that particular jurisdiction that can be addressed. They have both civil and criminal jurisdiction over the offences. The pecuniary jurisdiction of Nyayalayas is fixed by the respective high courts. To what are the domains where their jurisdiction lies is fixed by the high courts, and they have been also given the power to accept certain evidences which would otherwise not be acceptable under the Indian Evidence Act. So these Gram Nyayalayas have been provided little flexibility as compared to the other laws or other courts. Then if we talk about the procedures to be followed, they can follow some special procedures in civil matters in a manner it deems just and reasonable in the interest of justice. So whatever the possibility is by reconciliation or conciliation between the parties, the Gram Nyayalayas can address that litigation in the village itself. Then they can also allow for the conciliation of the disputes. If you talk about the appeals, an appeal in criminal case shall lie to the court of session. Then an appeal in the civil cases shall lie in the district court, and these appeals should be heard within the 6 months from the date of filing. A prelims previous year question from this topic that was asked in 2016 with reference to Gram Nyayalaya Act, which of the following statement are correct? First statement says that as per the Act, Gram Nyayalaya can hear only civil cases and not criminal cases. This is incorrect. And with regard to the second statement, the Act allows local social activists as mediators or conciliators. This is correct option. This is the statement 2 is correct. So correct answer here was B, 2 only. Now let's look into prelims snippets. So in this, our first topic is Chandipura virus, which is named after the Maharashtra village where the virus was first discovered. The likely vector or the carrier of this virus is female phlebotomine sandfly. This particular virus was also detected in the sandflies in the countries like Senegal and Nigeria apart from India. This virus majorly causes the inflammation of the brain and progresses rapidly from an influenza-like illness to coma, and ultimately can also cause to the death of the person or the fatality. This virus belongs to Raboviridae family, an order of mononegaviral. This also belongs to genus of vesiculovirus. The virus predominantly infects children below the age of 2 to 16. The major symptoms of this virus is that sudden high fever accompanied by headache and altered consciousness, convulsions, vomiting and nausea, and unconsciousness. Next is neutrinos. Neutrinos are the fundamental particles like electron and proton that cannot be further divided into the smaller particles. They are the smaller particles that form the universe. So what happened at Pottipuram village in the Theni district on Tamil Nadu-Kerala border, there is a neutrino observatory that is being developed by India, and the initial goal of this observatory is to study neutrinos. It have various phases, in which the first phase will study about the natural neutrinos, whereas in second phase the observatory will study about the factory made neutrinos from USA, Europe, Japan and Antarctica. Then the ICL detector will help in determining the neutrino masses and mixing parameters. Now, under this observatory, while building this observatory, there are widespread apprehensions with the local people and the activists. They feel that the project will deteriorate the ecological fragile conditions of the Western Ghats. The blasts, etc., that will be happening, that may impact the dams like Mulla Periyar Idukki Dam located in those areas. Then the dust that will be generated during tunneling, that may affect the air quality and ultimately may lead to lot of air pollution and respiratory illness. Next topic is policy stances by RBI. So what happens? The Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 was amended, and there has been a monetary policy committee that has been set up that decides the repo rate. Now, while in the meetings of the Monetary Policy Committee, after deciding the repo rates, they also gives the stance that the Monetary Policy Committee will be taking in the future course of actions while deciding on the repo rates or the interest rates. So there are mainly three stances: accommodative, hawkish and neutral. In the accommodative stance, RBI is ready to cut the interest rates and there is no scope of rate hike in the future. The main objective is to boost money supply in the market to ensure excess liquidity comes in the market. While in the hawkish stance, RBI is willing to increase the interest rates. They want to keep inflation in control. They want to control the excess liquidity that is there in the market. Then in the neutral instance, RBI can either increase the rate or decrease it as per the situation of the economy at that point of time. They don't give us a clear instance or clear direction in which direction they will be moving in the future. Next is monoclonal antibody. So context of this topic is that Nipah monoclonal antibody trial may begin in India by May 2025. So what happened? This novel Nipah monoclonal antibody named MBP1F5, the clinical trials or the human trials may begin after it gets green light from the drug regulators of India. These monoclonal antibodies are the laboratory made proteins that mimic the behavior of antibodies produced by the immune system to protect against the disease and the foreign substances. What happens? An antibody attaches itself to an antigen and helps the immune system from eliminating that antigen from the body, whereas this antigen is a foreign substance which is usually a disease causing agent or disease causing molecule. These monoclonal antibodies are specifically designed to target certain antigens and also to cure specific diseases. Nails Ki Journey, George J.F. Kohler and Cesar Milstein were awarded the Medical Nobel Prize in year 1984 for their work on the principle for the production of monoclonal antibodies. And these monoclonal antibodies have widespread applications starting from therapeutics to diagnostics, etc. This was all from my side for today's Analyst. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.